Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we actually have to talk about big tech because they are resuming support of Russia somewhat. Now, here's what's going on. This is coming from Tom's Hardware, and I think this is an important one, so pay attention. I'm going to crib basically from Tom's quite a bit here. Now, multiple reports from Russian media are asserting that Intel, which stopped doing business inside Russia and Belarus, obviously due to US sanctions levied due to the Ukraine war, has now resumed allowing driver and software downloads inside those countries. Now, the immediate aftermath basically of US sanctions, Russian users were previously unable to download Intel software. These reports also indicate that Microsoft has now re-enabled automatic updates for Windows 11 for Russian users. And to quote an Intel spokesperson talking to Tom's Hardware, quote, "There have been no recent changes to our operations. In February and March 2022, Intel suspended all shipments to customers in Russia and Belarus, respectively. In April 2022, Intel announced that it was suspending its business operations in Russia. Intel continues to comply with all applicable export regulations and sanctions in the countries in which it operates." Now, that includes, apparently, and I continue to quote, "compliance with sanctions and export controls against Russia and Belarus issued by U.S. and allied nations, access to resources that meet driver update needs, such as Intel Download Center and Intel Download Support Assistant, are part of Intel's warranty obligations." End quote. But although, and I have to state, sources close to the matter are basically talking to Tom's Hardware said that Intel did initially block downloads in Russia for the software mentioned in that statement, but the company restored access to that in the later portion of 2022. That justifies Intel's statement that the changes weren't quote-unquote recent. Intel driver and support assistant downloads are now freely available to Russian users due to Intel's warranty obligations. The Russian media also reports, or rather their reporting also indicates that Intel's initial block on downloads began on February 25th of last year, and it appears to be based on the user's geographic location. As such, both individuals and companies in Russia couldn't access downloads from Intel's official website, so they had to spoof their IP addresses using things like VPNs or find them other ways like torrents and all those other kinds of things. According to Russian media, quote-unquote experts contended that Intel's block prevented the company from fulfilling its warranty obligations to Russian users. Now, according to Russian media outlets, Izvestia and CNews, they're reporting that they could access Intel Downloads portal without IP spoofing as of January 11, 2023. However, it had to find the download section through Yandex or Google, as main Intel Russia sites are still no longer directly accessible. Now, as we mentioned Microsoft before, the reports are also claiming that Microsoft has now quietly resumed allowing Windows 11 updates within Russia, even though it doesn't allow downloading their operating system. Microsoft responded to queries by Tom's Hardware about re-enabled Windows 11, and they responded with this following statement, and I quote, as we shared previously, we have stopped all new product and service sales in Russia and are complying with sanctions from the EU, UK, and United States. Again, that is according to Microsoft. Now, Microsoft's statement, though, does not address the issue of whether or not it has re-enabled these updates for users. It only pertains to sale of new products and services, and the provided blog post also does not mention Microsoft's policy for Windows Update, which has previously been disabled in that country. Basically, Tom's Hardware pointed that out to Microsoft and asked for clarifications, and they didn't say anything else, meaning Microsoft did not respond further to that. So I think this is essentially what we are starting to see, is a loosening of these kinds of sanctions in big tech. Obviously, if you're looking at the Intels and Microsofts of the world, well, Russia is not a massive economy compared to like the United States or China or, any of basically the G7. Nevertheless, there's a lot of money to be made in Russia. And if they are quietly resuming, let's say, support operations, but not direct sales, that is essentially aiding, Russia, who is actively attempting to essentially take over and oust Ukraine's leadership. So that obviously is a huge problem that I think we've got going on. I think the full court press needs to continue for Russia for as long as it takes in order to essentially put pressure on them to essentially give up in this Ukraine war, go back into their borders and all of that. Ukraine is obviously a sovereign nation fighting for their lives right now, and we have been doing everything we can to offer them logistical support. So even though these are minor things, this is somewhat like a resummation here of support by big tech companies in Russia, and I think that is heading in the wrong direction. So we'll see what happens here. If you know anybody at Microsoft or Intel, you might want to let them know, hey, let's turn off the update spigot as well, because they should not have access to drivers. They should not have access to updates. They should be made to have to work for this kind of stuff because of this pointless invasion. And so I think this is a huge thing. And overall, I think it's the wrong direction to go. We'll see what happens with Microsoft, Intel, and other big tech companies that offer updating, patching, all that kind of stuff, Apple, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see what's going on, but obviously I'm not a big fan of this news. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And there you go. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.